All right, we're now streaming live on Facebook. So welcome to everybody in Facebook land. How are you doing? I hope
hope
you're doing well. This is James from Justify Talent and Being Sorted. So James has also been pretty active in the Business Brain Food group recently. If you've been reading his posts about recruiting salespeople, they've been pretty cool. Very informative. So, all right, we're now streaming live on Facebook. I can hear myself, so I'm going to mute that. And how you doing? Isn't that funny? All right, cool. So I can see Raz has joined us. Raz, hopefully you can hear us okay. I had some sound issues earlier today as I recorded a previous episode. But I think we're doing okay now, and we've already got one viewer in there. Say good day, James.
G'day, folks. How you going? Good to see you, even though I can't.
Yeah, even though he can't. Well, none of us can see anybody except for ourselves. So
right.
It's all good. He's good looking though. And we're going to go live. So the good thing about this for you guys that are inside of Business Brain Food group is you get to watch the pre-recording of the podcast. You also get to ask questions live. So if you do have any questions throughout the podcast that you want to ask James, pop them into the chat below this video and I'll do my best to ask the questions, okay? Typically when I'm recording the episode, I don't reference the live very often, but I will mention it. Why not? Doesn't really matter. That makes people listening to the podcast realize they're missing out on something else awesome, which is getting to watch the recording live, all the behind the scenes stuff. So just be patient as we get the podcast started. Once we're underway, you'll be able to view the entire podcast here on the live recording. All righty. And if you've got any questions, that's good. Pat says, sounds great now. Thank you. Sorry about earlier, Pat. For some reason, someone had adjusted one of my little settings in Zoom, and it meant that my audio wasn't coming through clearly on the live. So they could only hear the guest, which is the most important person to hear anyway. So
time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell. The pressure's on, mate. The pressure's on. So tell me, James, are you ready to go?
Mate, I am ready to rock and roll. Let's hit it.
All right. So the first thing I want you to do is you're going to top the whole episode by saying, my name is James Michael, and a quick 10-second elevator speech, and you're listening to the Business Brain Food podcast.
Okay.
Can you do that for me?
Yep. Rock and roll. So, hey, everybody, I'm James Michael, founder and CEO of Justify Talent. We help small business owners to recruit their very first sales professional, and you are on the Business Brain Food Live.
All right, we're going to redo that because I need to say, and you are listening to the Business Brain Food podcast.
Oh, okay. The whole thing?
Yeah, whole thing again, please.
Business Brain Food podcast. Okay.
You are listening to the Business Brain Food podcast, yeah.
G'day, everybody. I'm James Michael, founder and CEO of Justify Talent. We help small business people to recruit their very first sales professionals, and you're listening to the Business Brain Food podcast live.
Perfect. Thank you, buddy. All right. So that gets edited in later and goes before the intro music starts. That's why we do that.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to do the intro now. You just you'll know when to come in because I'll talk about you and I'll welcome you to the show. All right.
Yep.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Business Brain Food podcast. This, my friends, is the podcast that is 100% devoted to taking you and your business to the next level. And the good news is, it doesn't matter whether you're just brand new to this business thing, so maybe you're just scratching that entrepreneurial itch, or maybe you're like myself and you've been in business for a long, long time and you've got the scars and the wounds to prove it. No matter what, there is always something new we can do to take our business to the next level. And today is absolutely no different. Pretty excited about today's guest coming on. I've got to be honest. I love sales and I love salespeople, but I always find it hard to recruit them. So today we have somebody coming on the show to help us understand how to recruit your next sales superstar. Now, before we do that, I do want to remind you that today's podcast is brought to you by Maxmyprofit.com.au. The team at Maxmyprofit help you build the business you imagine. So if you imagined having a business that was easier to run, made you more money, maybe gave you the time to do the things that you love in life, but instead you've got something that's like a bit of a ball and chain, a bit unfun, something that keeps you up at night worrying about how you're going to pay your next bill, then you need to talk to the team at maxmyprofit.com.au and they'll help you build the business you imagined. Now, if you do enjoy the Business Brain Food podcast, a couple of things that you can do. First of all, head across to the Business Brain Food group on Facebook. We have a Facebook group there, which is full of entrepreneurs having a chat. And guess what? You are missing out. And unless, of course, you're watching this live, because we do live stream these episodes as we record them into the Business Brain Food group. So if you want to see that happening, a bit of behind the scenes as well, then make sure you join that group. Just head across to facebook.com, search groups for Business Brain Food, answer a couple of very simple questions. We don't make it too hard. And you'll be in the group, and you can network and discuss all things business, along with getting the behind the scenes look at the podcast. The second thing you can do if you enjoy the podcast is head to your favorite podcast player and leave an honest review or rating. We do stream this through all the major players like Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, even through our very own website, businessbrainfood.com.au. Wherever you go, leave your honest review or rating. We read them all, and we love to get your feedback. Absolutely love getting your feedback. All right, let's get on with the show. Today, James Michael is joining us. He's the founder and CEO of Justified Talent. It's a specialist recruitment firm which helps small business owners find their first sales professionals. With a background in behavioural psychology, he and his team take quite a different approach to recruitment. Now, I can say that I've used James's service, Been Sorted, myself to recruit a salesperson, and the service was sensational. Welcome to the show, James.
Thanks, mate. Thanks very much. Nice little pat on the back there to kick off with as well.
Mate, I loved it. I love technology, and I know that you do too. We'll get to that shortly. Before we do jump into sort of learning a bit more about recruiting salespeople, tell us a bit about your background. Tell us what path led you there.
Okay. Wow. How do you get into sales? I've got no idea how I ended up in sales. In fact, I was in denial about being in sales for many, many, many years, if the truth be known. Look, potted history is I started off in the military. That's where I did my psych stuff. Did it for reasons of evil, not reasons of good. Got out of that. I had a bit of a corporate career, somehow managed doing this stuff called sales and then sales management. And then in 2000, kind of went out on my own, decided that I could do it, better for myself. And between 2000 and today, 20 years later, I've owned and operated 7 different businesses. 4 of those are currently running today. And one of those was a sales training business, which I co-owned with another guy for 15 years that we grew to be a bit of a national concern. So, sales has been in and around me now for the better part of 20 years.
Yeah, okay. So it's certainly part of your DNA then, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems that way, as much as I'm often in denial about being in sales.
Yeah. And in all those years of running sales training and teaching, organizations how to convert better,
yep.
What's the funniest thing you've ever seen?
Oh, wow. Questions without notice. The funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, was there something bizarre somebody was doing and they said, I don't know why I'm not converting, and they were taking, I don't know, a rotten fish with them or something, what is there really, I always love finding out, is there some funny thing that ever happened? Because I'm imagining there would be something.
Look, nothing's readily coming to mind other than the day that I had to spend in a car with a sales rep doing some kind of ride-alongs and doing some curbside coaching, who would have to have had the worst halitosis known to mankind. So being in a confined space in his car all day long was not pleasant. But yeah, readily anything really, truly funny is escaping me.
But isn't that the case though? How many salespeople do you meet that have bad odors?
Right.
They're pretty simple things to fix, right?
Yeah. Well, in fact, somebody said something the other day. They referred to sales breath.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
What is sales breath?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's kind of like, oh, you smell like a salesman or something like that. But yeah, it's like simple little things, right? It's all the little things that make all the difference in the world.
Yeah. And who's your favorite sort of famous sales trainer, like the Zig Ziglars, Brian Tracy's, et cetera? Have you got one?
Well, you just hit him, Brian Tracy, right? Because he's not only is he sales, but he's also psychology. And for me, the psychology of performance and the psychology of sales has really been the thing that I've been fascinated with forever and a day. So yeah, Brian Tracy's my go-to guy.
Yeah. I got to agree. I like Brian Tracy, because I'm a big fan of the psychology of why people buy rather than being good at selling. I don't think if you can understand the psychology behind people buying stuff from you, then you don't have to sell anymore. That's my philosophy. It's hard to get that across sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's have a chat about Justified Talent. You've gone from sales training now to helping people with recruitment.
Yeah.
What led you down that path?
Probably two key things, mate. Number one was the fact that there was a period of time where I was an HR director for a business, and we needed to recruit a new sales director. And the CEO asked us to use his mate, who was a recruiter. So we did. And we recruited a guy, and because of the salary that he was on, the invoice came from the recruiter, and it was for $42,000.
Wow.
Right. So as I signed off on the authority to pay and I handed it to one of my team members, we had a bit of a giggle and said, what do you reckon the recruiter's actually done to justify this fee? And there's that name Justify coming up, right? So we surmised as to what that might have been. 3 months later, we needed to recruit a head of digital marketing. So I went to the new sales director and I said, hey, with this DM role, do you reckon we should use so-and-so again? And he said, who? I said, your recruiter. And he said, what do you mean my recruiter? For crying out loud, mate, the guy who recruited you for us, I didn't meet a recruiter. The first time I knew anything about the job was when you guys contacted us. So we'd paid $42,000 for an email with a resume attached to it. So
moly.
That was the beginning point of, I'm going to do something a little bit different because that's an industry that's ripe for the taking, right? Then the other piece that kind of kicked into, look, I just have a love and a passion for small business owners. I love seeing human beings realize their potential, and within that, whether it's both their potential and as a consequence, their business's potential. And if I can play a role in helping that happen in some way, then that's what I'm all about these days. I've got the silver hair now that kind of goes with the giving back thing. I mean, I don't do it all for free, obviously, but I just love helping small business owners achieve their ambitions. And so one of the ways in which that I kind of realized that I could best do that now was by helping them get better at recruiting the right person in the first place, because most of the recruitment methodologies that we've all been taught have now been kind of discovered to be fundamentally flawed. So I wanted to bring about some change and bring about some real value and help people find talent that was justified.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, that's good. It's good to hear you doing that. And I know we're probably going to maybe upset some recruiters that do it the old traditional way, but I'm with you, mate. I always cringed when I had to recruit or a client was using a recruitment agent, because I just felt like it was a lot of money for not a lot of real effort and care,
Absolutely.
So I really like what you're doing. I like the whole system, and I like the psychology behind it, because I mean, you talk about the fact that it's the process is a bit broken.
Yep.
Mate, can you help us understand what you mean by that? I mean, what is broken about it? What's wrong with just getting a CV and, I don't know, interviewing people?
Okay. So part of the problem in this is that ultimately what you end up having is a human being making a decision about another human being. And there's two things that are problematic about that. Number one, human beings are actually judgmental creatures, right? We've got this stuff called subconscious bias hardwired into us, right? And so as soon as we see somebody, we're making evaluations about them that aren't necessarily correct or accurate. And we can give people positive attributes where they don't deserve them, or we can give them negative attributes where they don't deserve them. So we're making decisions through our own lenses, which are fundamentally flawed. But the other piece that comes with it, and this is the bit that struck me, right? So being from a psychology background, I'm a little bit of a kind of data nerd. And so I discovered a piece of research that Harvard had conducted in 2003. And what that kind of revealed was that the traditional methodology that we all subscribe to for selecting our next high performer, call for a cover letter, call for a resume, do a structured interview, maybe do a personality assessment, get reference checks done, those 5 things which are the holy grail of recruiting. Turns out the predictive reliability of that is 0.26, where the ideal number is actually meant to be 1, right? The cover letter, the resume, they have 0 predictive value whatsoever. They're marketing documents.
Yeah.
Right?
And if they're good salespeople, they well, even if they're not, they can pay somebody who's good at writing those marketing documents.
Well, absolutely. If you do a Google search today and type in resume writing services, you will get over 9 million responses in under a second, right? To which a lot of people I first talk with will say, oh yeah, but we've got a really good interview process. Really? How about you go back to Google, type in how to do well at a structured interview, click enter, and just click on the videos. There's over 8 million videos of 3 minutes duration on how to do well at an interview.
Yeah.
Right? And anybody worth their salt quickly jumps onto, their iPhone, watches that 3 minutes before they walk into the interview with you, and ta-da, they're an amazing storyteller.
Yeah. Yeah. But I know I've struggled with recruitment, and I wouldn't be the first business owner.
No, absolutely.
So what are we supposed to do besides what we know? Like, how do we learn how do we learn what the right? It's good to know that Harvard's doing studies, and they've got all this data telling us that what we're doing is wrong. But how do we know what to do to get the right person? And I guess that's now where you come in, isn't it?
Well, it is. And look, even if people don't use us, the fundamental answers are, and you've seen some of this in the posts that I've been putting up in the group just recently, right? But the fundamental thing is, first of all, and so this is the psychologist coming out, people who are successful in sales actually have a very clear, defined behavioral benchmark, which is hardwired into them. How they are and who they are and how they behave and conduct themselves, right? There's a very clearly, like I've now profiled over 3,900 salespeople in the last 3 years, and it's very, very clear what their hardwiring is, the ones that are successful. So, rather than asking interview questions, certainly one of the things that we would strongly recommend is get deep insights into their nature, into their character, and you do that by using assessments, right?
Okay, yeah.
That's number one. The number two thing is, as much as you possibly can, get people to demonstrate what you need them to possess rather than tell you about what they need to possess, right? When you interview people, essentially what you're asking them to do is to tell you a really good story, and the best storyteller wins, right? But if you can get people to actually do a demonstration of what you need them to do, you soon find out whether they can or they can't. If you need them to cold call, get them on the bloody dog and bone.
Oh, during the interview, get them to cold call in front of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
And if they struggle with that,
right,
there's your answer, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's some obviously some questioning involved in your sales process, well, so then do that with me, right? Become the typical customer. And yes, it feels a bit like it's role play, but it's a damn sight more informative than asking them a bunch of interview questions.
So I know a lot of people struggle still with hiring salespeople. I think the thing is because, to hire someone technically, like someone with a technical ability, you can look at their work history. And say they worked for XYZ. They've been a tradesman for this many years.
Yep.
They know how to do XYZ. We should be able to just give them that work and away they go, right? So from a skills point of view, I think it's easier to spot those skills and even test those skills, right, than it is sales. Yeah. So if I'm not a salesperson, if I'm not great at sales in my own business, but I'm tasked with the job of recruiting one, how am I going to judge somebody's abilities when I don't know what those skills should look like?
Well, ideally you engage with someone like us to help, to do that work for you, right? But if you're not in a position to do that for whatever reason, it really is just, first of all, if you don't really understand how your business gets sold, you probably shouldn't be hiring a salesperson right now, right? Chances are you won't have the infrastructure in place that's going to set this person up to be successful, right? You may be setting them up to fail. But outside of that, it really is a case of, get them to actually demonstrate to you how they conduct themselves at a point of sale.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. Now, I'm going to go back a bit because you just said you may not have the infrastructure in place.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing that we need to explore further. Yeah. So if I don't have, so you're talking about like a sales process or a methodology for getting a sale or, things like that, tools like CRMs.
Yeah. All of the above. Yeah, absolutely. So, we actually turn clients away, which is unheard of from a recruiter. But we'll turn clients away because, we will say to them, you're not ready yet to bring somebody on. You are, for some reason, believing that they are going to be the magic silver bullet for you. And if I continue the weapons analogy, you think you're going to be able to treat them like they're a cruise missile. There's the target, go hit it. See you later. They're not like that at all. And so, for us, some of the criteria is, if you as the business are not yet turning over at least 750K, it's too early, because that means that your business, and, generalizing here, in a B2B kind of space. Because what that would suggest is your business hasn't gathered enough momentum in the marketplace. Hasn't passed proof of concept yet, really. Right?
Do you think a lot of people have hired salespeople without the infrastructure in place, and then that person hasn't worked out, and instead of taking ownership for the lack of infrastructure, blame the salesperson?
Mate, I would say that only happens every single time.
Yeah, I think that'd be pretty common, wouldn't it? As I was saying that out loud, I'm going, I think that's probably what most likely happens.
Absolutely.
So, that makes it even harder, because what I hear, right, from a lot of business owners is the one position they hate recruiting is for sales.
Yeah.
They hate recruiting for salespeople. But to me, it sounds like maybe they're just doing it all wrong.
Yeah, I think so. And look, to some degree, what's also happening there is they're sharing their own mindset about what this thing called selling is. All right. And what they're revealing to you is that for some reason, they've got this misconception that sales is all about that guy who's got the gift of the gab, who can talk underwater with a mouth full of marbles, who's that extreme extrovert, and they feel uncomfortable with that persona. Right. So they're imagining that they have to go and now recruit one of those oily, slimy creatures. And so they're uncomfortable with that. And nothing could be further from the truth, particularly, right now in this day and age. That kind of salesperson absolutely is on the way out, if they're not gone already. They're going the way of the dinosaur.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, it's very stereotypical, isn't it? Like, that's just... Yeah, that's the days of old. And these days you're looking for somebody with a little bit more professionalism in their approach. And so you talked about doing assessments, right? So let's talk us a bit through some of the things we can do to make sure we do get the right person.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke a bit about, besides having good infrastructure in place and a turnover that shows momentum in your business, is there anything else that would be a good signal before we try recruiting people?
Well, you need to have a plan in place to get you past the 750 to past $1 million.
Yep.
If you don't have at least 4 months worth of salary in the bank for your newbie, don't, because they're not going to sell anything for the first 4 months. If they do, it's a fluke. Maybe they've gone and spoken to the usual kind of collection of, what do we call it? Friends, family, and fools, right?
Yeah, the 3 Fs.
Yeah, the 3 Fs, right? But the minute they run out of those 12 people, it's, oh my God, now I've got to go and do real selling. So if you haven't got 4 months worth of salary and you don't have preparation in your mind for the idea that you may not get a return for the first 3 or 4 months, you will immediately put yourself and that individual under a huge amount of pressure.
Yeah.
Have you got a good lead gen program? How active are you on social and things of that nature? And when I say you, not necessarily you, the business owner, but the business. Is there some system, process, policies, procedures in place where lead gen is happening? Because if you think the salesperson's going to do all of that, again, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
But I think a lot of people do expect that of a salesperson. You mentioned before, when they come in for the interview, make them do a couple of cold calls.
Yeah, if cold calling is part of your deal, but yeah, like in our business, as an example, not only do we not make cold calls, we don't even go on sales visits. I have not done a sales visit since January of 2018. Every single piece of business we do is inbound inquiry, people wanting to do business with us. Where did that come from? That came from being very, very active and continuing to be so on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Right now, can everybody do that? Maybe, maybe not. But yeah, so that's our version of lead gen. It's about being, very, very active on social and putting content out there that people see real value in, and it gives insights. And then when they're thinking of, I'm going to recruit a salesperson, we should speak to that guy, James, at Justified Talent.
Yeah, because the way my philosophy on it is that lead generation machine and sales machine, if you were going to buy machines, are two separate machines.
Yeah, agreed.
And you wouldn't pay a good salesperson that is great at converting to generate leads, and you wouldn't pay a good marketing person who's great at generating leads to convert leads. That's my philosophy.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Now, not all businesses have the resources, money, to be able to pay 2 wages. So you've got to think about how you're going to do that. And certainly sometimes there are certain lead generation activities, though, that an individual can do and a business can't do. Things like networking, things like cold calling, things like referral, alliance, partnerships, etc. Those sort of have to be relationships rather than done via a machine. So I'm guessing that's where your thinking is coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and look, I'm using one label to describe a whole range of different possible, approaches to it. But yeah, ultimately it's about understanding that your business has a level of maturity and sophistication already in play before you start bringing in what will be a 6-figure investment called a salesperson.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's just their salary, let alone all the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me then, once I get to that point, if I can tick all of those boxes and say, yep, I'm definitely ready to hire a salesperson.
Yeah.
What do I do? How do I go about finding the right person?
Okay. So, there's lots of arguments out there about the active marketplace versus the passive marketplace, active candidates versus passive candidates, one being better than the other. Am I allowed to swear a little with a word that starts with B?
If you need to, go for it.
Okay. That's bullshit. Right? They're both as good as each other. Again, there's this rubbish that people have put out there that passive candidates, somebody who's in a role at the moment, is better than an active candidate, somebody who's looking. There's absolutely zero science whatsoever that proves that to be the case. It's rubbish, right? So what does it mean? It means, yes, there's the traditional route of advertising, but understanding that when I say the traditional route, that advertising route is just exploded everywhere these days. So it's not just Seek. Seek is still the dominant player when it comes to the advertising route. But, there's a plethora of free job boards out there, Glassdoor, Jora, Indeed, even LinkedIn have what's called organic advertising, not just paid advertising. So there's a whole range of different job boards you can be on. Facebook, you can do advertising on Facebook for free, specifically for roles, for recruiting. Google will be launching a recruitment service before too long as well. They tinkered with it a little bit last year, put it on pause. I'm pretty sure it'll go live again, down the back end of this year. So there's all sorts of different platforms you can be on. Be using YouTube, be using all of the video kind of channels that help you kind of present the possibility in lots of different ways. The rule of thumb that I kind of use here is wherever your ideal candidate hangs out, be there, right? So that's number one. The other kind of side of the coin as well, of course, is that yes, there's LinkedIn, right? And you can very, very easily find salespeople on LinkedIn. Right, you just do a search by job title. If you've got Sales Navigator, or if you use their recruitment service, their casual recruitment service, the filters that you can use to identify where people are very, very strong, including people who will have ticked the box that says yes, I'm open to opportunities. Right. And so you can find those people and you can make an approach to them. One of the things that we've been using with a huge amount of success when we take the LinkedIn direct approach, so we're looking for passive candidates, is when we do a connection request, we actually include a URL to a YouTube video that we've shot a little earlier, right? Because the open rates when you do a connection request sit around about 5% at the moment. If you include a link to a YouTube video or a Vimeo video, the open rates jump up to 60%, right? 60% of the people that you approach saying, hey, I've got an opportunity, don't know whether you'd be interested in it, but here's a little video on it. 60% of people who receive that will actually open it and they will watch the video, right? So
great tip.
Yeah, lots of really powerful ways in which you can go find or where you can showcase the opportunity to people.
So you say Seek is still a tool that you can use, but it sounds like there's a lot of other places. And I think you talked about doing a video. I think people don't see recruitment as marketing, but it is. It's you got to put your message forward. You got to put it in best foot forward. Make sure that message is enticing. You want to entice people into your business. What about, you talked about active versus passive being, and I'm guessing that means finding someone who's got a job already and making them an offer.
Yep.
Rather than going to the market. What if there's a really good salesperson, right? Your competitor's got this really, really great salesperson, and that if you got them on board, it would just make a difference to your world.
Yeah.
Still a good idea to try and poach them and approach them?
Pros and cons to that, mate. So first of all, understand that if I'm a gun salesperson, I'm making really good dough. So
Yeah.
you better have a bloody compelling reason for me to come and even have a cup of coffee with you, because seriously, you're stealing my selling time, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm really good at what I'm doing, I'm making heaps of money, I haven't got time to be talking with time wasters, right? So you need to have absolutely got a compelling reason why I would even entertain coming across and having a chat. So, one of the things that I often talk about with the passive market, so that's people who are in a role at the moment who you find attractive for the role. Don't wait until you need them in your business to make contact with them. You should have been talking to them a year ago, and even saying a year ago, listen, I'm not trying to recruit you. I'm just not, right? But are you open to having a conversation about your career direction? Would you mind if we perhaps caught up once every 2 or 3 months over a coffee? And let's just chat about where you're going, where my business is going, and let's see whether or not those paths cross at some stage in the future. If you're not having 4 or 5 of those a month as a business owner with some good quality salespeople, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. Okay. So it should be really, it's almost like you're cultivating a little group of potential salespeople.
Yeah, absolutely. Always be on the lookout for those people. You'll come across them. Chances are they're trying to sell you something, right? And if they do that in a suitably impressive way, whether you do or you don't buy from them, doesn't matter. Grab their business card, connect with them on LinkedIn, keep an eye out on them. Every now and then, if you see something on LinkedIn or wherever, you hear of them having done something really good, give them a pat on the back. Chances are their sales manager isn't.
Yeah, and that'll means that, and that's one of the keys, isn't it? It's just to be there.
Yeah.
That's marketing 101, right? Yeah. Be there, just be there all the time, and make sure you are the person that's making them feel good, because that's what people get attracted to. It is about emotions.
Yes, 100%. So on that, can I kind of deviate just a little bit and just very quickly talk about ad copy?
Yeah, let's do that, because I was going to ask you that question anyway, because I think that's so many people struggle with how to write the right ad.
Yeah. All right.
So if I'm going to advertise, I need to understand what to put in there.
Yeah. So, to Ben's point, please understand the front end of the recruitment exercise is marketing. You need to put your marketing hat on, right? Here's what most job ads look like. Here's who we are. And everybody's number one in the market, apparently, right? Here's the crap you better be able to do. I call it the ransom note of demands, right? And here's how to apply. Ooh, really?
Yeah.
Not in the slightest bit enticing. And for small business owners, and can I say right now, it's even harder, right now particularly, and it's going to be really hard for a small business owner to recruit a quality salesperson for the next 18 months, because small business owners are high risk right now, right? As much as Virgin's collapsed as well, but you know, the big business end of town has more money, has more resources, it has more longevity than, Bob and Betty Proprietary Limited just down the road, right? So your ad copy needs to be appealing. It needs to, in the first instance, tell the story of you, right? And lots of people will have heard this phrase: we join good organizations, we leave dickhead managers, right? I know I've done that in my working lifetime.
Yeah, plenty of people have. Yep.
Yeah, right. And so as I'm looking at a job ad, if there's anything in that job ad that suggests that you're a control freak, that you lack empathy, that you're just going to be demanding of me, guess what? I'm walking away. Right. So your job ad needs to tell a really nice story about who you are and what your values are and what you stand for in the marketplace. Right. That positions you, but with a degree of, it's got to be kind of storytelling and talking about values, right? And it's got to be genuine, right? It's got to have authenticity in it. And then the next piece that I'd suggest that you want to do is, in fact, rather than wasting time putting bullet points down talking about the routine duties, like if I'm a BDM, do I know that I need to prospect and that I need to, do needs analysis and that I need to write proposals and that I need to handle? I know all that stuff. So don't waste any of your advertising space writing those things down. Instead, write a description of who I am. Right. In the ideal world, who am I in terms of the ideal personality?
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So
because if I see me in the ad, I'm more likely to apply.
So can you give us an example of what I might write? Have you got like just off the cuff? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
No. So it'll be things like, if you're a really confident communicator, but not overbearing, right? You're comfortable asserting yourself, but you don't dominate the room. You're somebody who loves meeting new people on a routine basis, but you know when to focus on the task at hand. Little things like that. So what we're actually describing here are characteristics, right, of an individual, of how they go about their day-to-day. In the ideal world, what you end up having is that, somebody reads the ad and they might be on their phone, they read the ad and they turn and they say, honey, come look at this. Look, this is so me, right? They're describing me here, right? That's ideally what you want as a response, rather than, that list of demands and the ideal candidate will possess.
Yeah.
Go away. God.
Ads, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you talked about assessments being part of the process. I think one of the other mistakes people make is they do one interview or two interviews with two different people, and then they just pick one that they like the most.
Yes.
And I don't know that that's the best recruitment strategy.
Absolutely, it's not.
So how long, should people have multiple interviews with the individual people? How many, you talk about doing assessments, I mean, how much work goes into hiring the right person?
Yeah, well, look, for us, our rule is, so my old man's very handy with his hands, and he subscribes to that old rule. He didn't make it up, but he subscribes to it of measure twice, cut once, right? So when I kicked off Justified Talent, I decided I would follow that kind of rule. And so we measure 4 times in order to place once, right? Now, those measurements, and I'm literally talking about putting people through 4 different assessments. And we do an interview with them. As you know, we use AI to do a little phone screen interview to begin with, but we also then do a human-to-human interview, and generally we'll spend 45 minutes to an hour interviewing the candidates who've made it through to what we call the long list. So if I get 300 people apply, we need to find 10 that we're going to have that deep conversation with. How we get to that 10 is by putting them through 4 different assessments, right? And then we have that conversation with them. I tend to recommend against having more than 2 people involved in the decision. If you're going to do your internal recruitment, it really ought to be you as the owner and maybe your business partner in whatever form they take. They may even be your life partner. And yes, it's nice for other people to have some involvement in it, but it's more nice for them than it is for anything else. Because what you end up having is 3 human beings who are actually no bloody good at really determining what another human being is like, right? Rather than relying on one to do that.
Yeah. You said you've done assessments on nearly 4,000 people that you've placed over the last few years.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have learned something from all of that.
Yeah, you know what? We have. And some of it wasn't a great surprise, but there were 2 things that really were quite a surprise in terms of what the natural hardwired state is of those people who are top quartile performers, particularly in the B2B space, right? So solution selling, challenger selling. The first one that was kind of interesting. So one of the things that our instrument measures is your optimism, right? And, if you look at most job ads for salespeople, we're looking for a positive, can-do, individual. Well, guess what? No, you're not. The most successful salespeople are actually slightly pessimistic.
Oh, They're really? Okay, that surprises me.
Right? Yeah, it surprises everybody.
Yeah.
Right? 3,900 people we've assessed. The ones who are always the top performers always land on the slightly pessimistic side of the scale rather than the optimistic side of the scale. And it'll make sense to you as I kind of describe it this way. Again, an old phrase, the amateur salesperson is the one who knows that they've got this sale in their bag for sure, boss, right up to the minute they lose it.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're blinded by their optimism, right? They don't ask the right questions. They don't challenge. They accept at face value what they're being told. No, we're not talking to anybody else. No, it's just you guys, for sure. No, we'll be back to you next week. No, seriously, boss, that's what they said to me. They're coming back to us next week. Yeah. Right. The successful salespeople are the ones who've got what I would describe as healthy cynicism. So they're not deeply pessimistic, right? But they've got a level of healthy cynicism where they will probe a little deeper and they will ask a few more questions, and they will qualify. So that was one of the surprises. It even surprised me, I will confess, right? The other one, and we measure 16 different things. I'm not going to go through all of those, but the other one that kind of surprised me as well is in the area of what we call accommodation, right? So how naturally accommodating am I? To what degree am I prepared to kind of bend and flex and be customer orientated, and meet the needs of the customer? Well, if I'm a high performing salesperson, not very much.
Not very flexible at all, eh?
No, not very accommodating at all, right? So we measure this and we plot them on a graph on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 would be the most supremely customer orientated kind of tendencies, the kind of thing you'd expect if you're flying first class with Emirates. You're expecting complete and utter, I get what I want, right? The vast majority of successful salespeople land on either 3, 4, or 5 for accommodating, right? So it's kind of like, it's that old Henry Ford thing. Listen, you can have your Model T in any color you like, so long as you like black.
Yeah. Interesting. So would your ad say something like that though? Would your ad say, if you're not accommodating and you're slightly pessimistic?
Well, yeah, you probably want to, think about how does that actually come out in a way that's beneficial, right? So yeah, the short answer is yes. The longer answer is you've got to finesse those words, but it's around, I'm looking for somebody who's comfortable challenging the status quo and doesn't just accept things at face value. Mm-hmm. I'm also looking for somebody who appreciates process and methodology and sticks to the sales process rather than flexing and bending all over the place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Don't want someone doing their own thing. So what questions do I ask? So I get somebody into an interview, I write this amazing ad, get them into the interview. I think so many people struggle with what do I actually ask these people? How do I judge them? Do I even need to have a meeting to judge somebody's performance now, or assessments?
You actually don't need to if you use a good recruiter, but obviously you do need to meet them eventually, right? And what we say to our clients is, we've done all of the hard work. We're putting 3 absolutely high caliber individuals in front of you right now who we know absolutely can do the job. We absolutely, and we can verify that capability. All you need to do now is work out whether you can stand being in the same space as them for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, right? So that's about cultural fit, and it's about, the harmony of the team and all that kind of thing. However, I know that the vast majority of people listening to the podcast and watching us live today are not going to buy that. They're still going to want to do the interview, right? So the fundamental things around interviews are, preface every single question with, give me an example of a time when, right? So not how do you or would you, give me an example of a time when. Tell me about a time when. Describe a situation where, right? So you're making them go to their memory, not to their imagination.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Good tip.
Draw on real experience. And you'll hear them start to say, oh, well, ordinarily what I would do is, no. Stop, listen, watch my lips. Tell me about a time when.
But
right?
What's your theory on things if people don't follow simple instructions? Does that mean they're just not suitable? Because that's a question that I've had before. Like, let's say someone is 10 minutes late or for their interview, or you give them a question in an interview and they just don't answer it properly. They don't get it.
Yeah. Look, I've got a 3 strikes and you're out rule, so I might be a little bit more accommodating than some would be. And I've got a client in mind only this week who said, "No, piss him off. He was bloody 10 minutes late." It's like, come on, mate. It's, some things, are an accident. Maybe he didn't hear the question properly, or maybe he was stuck in traffic, or whatever the case may be. So I'll give people the 3 strikes and then you're out. I
think you're right. People use their own set of glasses, if you like, to judge others, your own values. And I'm a very punctual person. So when someone turns up late, that's a really big cross against your name for me, because I'm very punctual, right?
Yeah.
And if I can't get there, I always communicate and say I'm going to be a few minutes late or whatever. I always tell people. So I would definitely judge somebody on that, but I might be sending the best salesperson on the planet away.
Absolutely. For what is really an inconsequential issue that may have been one single moment in time. It might have been a Kodak moment that's never going to be repeated ever again. And so what I really encourage people to do is to get stuck into the deeper, more meaningful stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So couple of things for business owners to be mindful of. It generally takes a salesperson about 18 months from the day they start, right, to really hit their straps, right? So if you've got people applying for you who have a history of starting and leaving, and there's a pattern in there around 18 months or under, walk away from them because they've never been successful, right? You will not hit success as a salesperson, like genuine sustained success, until at earliest 12 months, right? And generally speaking, 18 months.
Is it possible, though, they're moving on because they haven't got the results that was expected of them, but it's not their doing, it's the business hasn't got the infrastructure?
Yeah, there is that possibility. But again, 3 strikes and you're out in my books. It's like,
if it happens over and over again, there's one common denominator, isn't there?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Looks like a dog, talks like a dog, smells like a dog. Guess what?
Probably is a dog. Yeah.
Yeah. The other piece as well is, get your candidate to share with you their absolute explicit numbers for the last 2 quarters or last 3 quarters. If they can't repeat their numbers back to you in their current or their last role, then they weren't making them. Yeah. Every good salesperson knows their numbers.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right. And so if you say, what were your KPIs in the last quarter? I'd have to look that up. Bye.
Yeah. Obviously not taking their role serious. Because that's the thing is I always look at, like, it's not a profession like a dentist or an accountant or even a tradie where you get trained and there's very clear things to be done. But it's certainly, and a lot of people don't treat it like a profession. My other thing that I say to people, it's a bit like karaoke, right? Get enough people in a bar drinking and they all think they can sing. And I think that when you put an ad on Seek for a salesperson, and the amount of people that think they are salespeople, it reminds me of karaoke night in the local pub. So, and I think this is what so many business owners struggle with, is how do you really pick out the ones? I think that's a great tip. Ask them for hard and fast, data on what were your KPIs and what did you achieve?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Totally. And they should be able to share those. I don't know that they wouldn't be able to share those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just mindful of time. We are running out of time. Is there anything I should have asked that I haven't asked, James, that you think would be worthwhile sharing?
Yeah. Often as not, business owners will say to me, but I've heard that you need to recruit for attitude, not for aptitude, because you can train people up, right? I can give people aptitude. There's some degree of truth in that, but it's not a universal truism. And so my cautionary note to everybody is this: it really doesn't matter how much training you give to a donkey. It's never going to win the Melbourne Cup. You know why? Because it's a donkey.
I thought it would be a trick question, but it wasn't.
It wasn't, right? It looks like a horse. It eats what a horse eats. It dumps out the back like a horse does. It really, really wants to be a horse boss. Really. Never going to happen.
Never going to happen, yeah. So it's easy. And so what about if I've hired somebody that's not performing? Talk about optimism not being actually the trait you want in a salesperson, but some business owners are really optimistic as well, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've seen people keep salespeople for a long time that aren't performing.
Yeah.
Because they think maybe they're good people.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
I have a definition. There's a slight difference between optimism and naivety, and the difference is stupidity. Right? It's just hanging on and hanging on and hanging on in some misguided belief that something's either going to change, or if I let them go, that the world will implode. Right? And yet, how many business people have I spoken to who, when they finally let their person go, and then the sun came up the next morning, right? The world didn't end.
And in fact, I've seen a lot of people that are much happier, and they go, geez, I wish I did that earlier.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
every single business owner I've ever spoken to who's gone through that has said to me, I really wish I'd done that earlier.
Yeah. Pretty common thing to hear, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty common to hear.
You know, the line that goes with that is hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah. And I've heard that before, you know, once again, easy. These things are easy to say, not always easy for people to do because it's uncomfortable, right? People are very uncomfortable firing. They love hiring because it's good news day.
Yeah, yeah.
But firing's bad news day. Not as much fun.
Well, absolutely. Obviously, there's the emotion involved and the disruption that you're bringing into the life of that human being, but it's also an admission of your own failure because you brought them in.
Yeah. So I think if you get the recruitment right, that problem doesn't exist.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that's something that you can hang your hat on. All right, mate. Well, fantastic. Well, once again, thanks for joining us. How can people find out more? Because I know there's a lot to what you do, and I don't think any business owner should try and do 4 assessments. They can have a go, but you know, I would recommend using somebody like James, definitely, if you're looking for your next superstar salesperson. So how can they find out more, buddy?
Justifiedtalent.com, all one word, or you can look me up on LinkedIn. So it's James Michael, obviously from Justified Talent. I'm not the American rock star who goes by the same name. I'm also on Facebook. Right, so all sorts of different places you can find me. I'm on YouTube, but yeah, ultimately it's Justified Talent. There's lots of free stuff. You know, I've got a lot more detail about what I've spoken about today is available through my LinkedIn profile. You know, I'm more than happy for people to come and grab all the freebies. There's no pressure from me to do business with me. So yeah, help yourselves.
Awesome. Well, we'll put that all into the links, which you'll find at businessbrainfood.com.au, into the show notes, rather, all those links into the show notes. This is episode 254. Or you could use the search bar and just search for James Michael or Justified, and I'm sure it'll come up. So we'll make sure all the links that we've mentioned throughout the show are in those show notes. Make it really, really easy. So if you're listening to this in the car, or if you're, maybe on the treadmill at home because you can't go to the gym at the moment, or maybe out running, pounding the pavement, who knows? You'll be able to find all the notes at businessbrainfood.com.au, episode 254. Well, James, thanks again, mate, for joining us. Really appreciate it. There was lots and lots of value there.
Thanks for having me, mate. I really appreciate it.
Hey, my absolute pleasure. Now, if you've enjoyed today's podcast, you know what to do. Head across to your favorite podcast player, leave an honest review or rating. We do read them all. We love to get your feedback. And we love to get your ratings as well. Let us know what we're doing well and let us know what we're not doing well. If there's something you'd like us to change or improve, then we'd love to hear about that as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Maxmyprofit.com.au. The team at Maxmyprofit help you build the business you imagined. So if you went into business imagining that you'd have something that was a little bit easier to run, that made you more money and gave you the time to do the things that you love, but instead you've got something that is a bit clunky, a bit unfun, and keeps you up at night worrying about how you're going to pay your next bill, then you need to talk to the team at Maxmyprofit.com.au and get them to help you build the business you imagined. Now, to all of those you on the Facebook Live, thank you for joining us today. If you are listening to this as a recorded podcast, you could have got this information a bit earlier by being in the Business Brain Food group on Facebook. So find us on Facebook, come and join the community. We're all hanging out, having a good time, and you are missing out. The people that are on the live, thank you for joining us live. It's always great to see you there learning as we go through and record the podcast. Well, that's it from me. I've been Ben Fewtrell. You've been fantastic for sticking around to the end of the podcast. Until next time, have a very profitable day. See ya. All right, fantastic. Well, there you go, James. We're still live in the group. If anybody's got any questions, Raz says, thanks, Ben and James. Thanks for hanging around, Raz.
Thank you.
If you've got any questions for James whilst he's still here on the line, I'm looking this way, by the way, because it's my Facebook screen.
Okay.
This is my Zoom screen. I know. So, sometimes I look a bit distracted. That's because I am, because I've got a lot going on. There's all this gear around me, all this equipment. I've got to make sure everything works. Good stuff. I can see lots of people tuned in live. Julian, Lynette, how you going? Tim, g'day, mate. Judy, how are things going? Judy owns a cafe up in Grafton. We'd be pleased that from this Monday you can play musical chairs.
Forward to that opening soon.
Yeah. 10 people. Mark, g'day, Mark. How you going? G'day, Tom. Raz says, not at this point, but I will. All right, Raz, fantastic. Raz probably needs a salesperson. He was talking to me about it the other day. Actually, we went on a motorbike ride.
Yeah. And
he did ask me about that.
Was that essential travel, mate?
It was essential travel. It was for exercise. I believe Gladys said that for mental health, you can go for a motorbike ride.
Wow.
Hey, Julian, thank you, buddy. Nice to see you here. Mitchy Cameron got the last 4 minutes. That's all right, mate. It'll be there for you for a while. You can go back and watch it. All good. If you want to recruit good salespeople, that was a smashing episode, mate. Thanks again, James. Really appreciate your knowledge and coming on and sharing everything with us and being available, mate. I know that you're a busy man, but it was great to have you here on the Business Brain Food podcast.
Great to be here. Thanks very much. Thanks, everybody.
I'm going to end the live.